Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the North Dallas Plano Career Focus Group. Very glad you're with us today. It is March 11th, a chilly day here in Dallas, 2022. Our agenda this morning, we'll start out with success stories. I do know of a couple landings. We'll then have everybody put their 30-second introductions into the chat window. We'll then hear from our committee reports, workshop, job fairs, pick crew, interview, success workshop, career tip of the week. And then we'll hear from our main event around 10 o'clock. If for those people who are on Zoom, you're welcome to enter any questions you have into the Zoom chat window. We'll also be using that to put your 30-second introductions in there. For those people watching on Facebook right now, thank you for joining us. Please just enter your questions you have into the comment field. And we are monitoring that feed to make sure we get those answered for you. Please note this event is being recorded and is currently live on Facebook. The recording will be on the Career DFW Facebook page and the Career USA YouTube channel for others to view in the future. By participating in this event, you give consent for your name and picture to appear. Please note that any comments you put in the Zoom chat window will not appear in the recording. Well, good morning, everybody. My name is Jeff Morris. Back in 2007, I took over facilitating and leading the North Dallas Plano Career Focus Group. The group's been around since the late 1990s. Like I said, I took it over in 2007 when the leader of the group had a job and said, who wanted to take over? And I think I scratched my face. He said, oh, get Jeff, you're it. In 2008, I created a website called careerdfw.org to help those who are unemployed in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. In 2012, I launched a second website, careerusa.org, to help those around the United States. I have written a book called What I've Learned About Your Job Search That You May Not Know. It is available on Amazon. And since 2017, I've been a member of the practice interview team, and you'll hear more about that in just a couple of moments. Well, we like to start the meeting off with good news. I'm looking down the list here. So I've heard of a couple landings. These are people who had disappeared over the last 90 days and we didn't know anything about them, but Judy Rahu has landed as a safety specialist. Sam Courtney landed as a pre-sales engineer at Quark Software. Jennifer Cox landed as an apparel associate at Bass Pro as a part-time job. And the one landing I heard about last night, and I don't see him on the call right now, is Jerry Jones. One of the two Jerry Joneses who watches or who jumps in our calls. There's two of them, so I had to figure out which Jerry Jones was this, and this is the correct one. He's landed as a commercial business development manager. He started work on March 1st, so he's our 11th landing of the of this group for the year. Do we have anybody else who's landed? Anybody else? Please unmute your mic and let us know if you're good news. Anybody else? All right, well, we'll move on. Okay, well, what we'd like everybody to do now is, if you would, open up the Zoom chat window and put in your 30-second introductions. We want to know your name, comma, phone number, comma, email address, comma, position you're looking for, comma, a couple target companies that you're interested in. Then hit the return key. That way all the information is together. And what I'll do is I'll get this out to an email to everybody this afternoon so you can get everybody's list of who they're looking for, and look over that list. See if you know somebody who you can help out. If you've got a contact at one of those companies, that would be greatly appreciated. Help each other. You know, how can you help somebody every day in helping in their job search? So we'll get everybody to put their 30-second introductions in there. Also, I use this as if you want to be counted on the roster, if you even want to get our email, the names that pop in on the chat is what I use to update the roster with. So if you don't put any information in, I will not know you're here and you won't get that email this afternoon. So we'll put 30 seconds on the clock. right. You're welcome to continuing to put that information as we move along here. All right. Welcome. It's time to welcome Eldon back from his 2 weeks of vacation to talk about job, career fairs, training, and workshops. So good morning, Eldon.
Good morning, Jeff. Good morning, everybody. Happy Friday. Yes, it's good to be back from my 2-week hiatus, but it was only a 1-week vacation, but caused me to miss 2 meetings. As Jeff said, I'm going to provide you information this morning on job and career fairs and special workshops or events. I get this information from the calendar tab at the website careerdfw.org. You'll notice the various colors of the calendar there, and they represent different topical areas of events going on during the course of the weeks and months to come. Having said that, I go through these items fairly quickly. If you hear something that catches your ear, I would urge you to go to the calendar, click on that item to find out more about it and or to register for it. All right, this week's career and job fairs. The Plano Career Fair, which is virtual by National Career Fairs, will be held Wednesday, March 16th from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. And there is a link on the calendar to find out more information about that. The 22nd annual in-person career fair by City Career Fairs will be held Wednesday, March 16th from 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. at the Holiday Inn Conference Center in Dallas Galleria, which is at 6055 LBJ Freeway in Dallas. There is a link on the calendar to find out more about that one. The Spring 2022 Career Fair, sponsored by Collin College, will be held Thursday, March 17th from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. And that will be held at Collin College Plano's campus at Living Legends Conference Center and Central Auditorium at 2800 East Spring Creek Parkway in Plano. And there are some links to find out more about that as well. Virtual hiring fair days will be held Thursday, March 17th from 12 p.m. to 12 p.m. It's got to be a mistake.
Oh, it should be 11. Sorry about that. 11 to 12.
11 to 12. I didn't catch that yesterday. Okay, 11 to 12. It's a Zoom meeting, and there's information on the calendar to find out more about that. Again, that's March 17th from 11 a.m. to noon. Finally, the 22nd annual virtual career fairs by City Career Fairs will be held Friday, March 18th from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. And there's a link to find out more about that. This week's special workshops or events: online LinkedIn Tuesdays at 1 p.m. Tuesday from 1 to 2:30. Join Locke Alderson, Terry Sullivan, Ruth Lipsky, or Kurt Vondemutter for an online session on LinkedIn. This week's presenter, I believe, is Terry Sullivan. And if you never heard Terry talk about LinkedIn from a marketing perspective, I strongly urge you to participate in that. There's a Zoom link and a Facebook link to participate. Online interviewing Wednesdays at 1 p.m. This again is new for 2022. You can now observe a practice interview from the pit crew each Wednesday from 1 p.m. to 2:30 p.m. And there is a Zoom link for that one.
This coming Wednesday, we have a special guest speaker, Jay Fucero. For those who don't know, Jay is an excellent speaker out of the Arkansas area, and he's going to talk about the 6 keys to a successful interview. So you won't actually be watching a real practice interview, but you'll get to hear Jay talk about what the 6 main keys are. So this is a new topic. He reached out to me and wanted to know if he could present, and I said, sure. So we'll have him next week.
Sounds good. Finally, an online effective resume seminar will be held Thursday, March 17th from 1 p.m. to 2 p.m. Join us each month on the first and third Thursdays for the effective resume seminar. This week's presenter is Rex Shoet, who used to be the HR manager for Choctaw. I'm not sure where he's at these days, but there's a Facebook link and a Zoom link for that. And finally, online, the third Friday Internet of Things Special Interest Group Breakfast will be held Friday, March 18th from 7:40 a.m. to 9 a.m. There's a link to find out more about that. They're currently meeting virtually. This is hosted by Ed Hightower, who used to be a member of this group. If you're interested in the Internet of Things, I strongly urge you to participate in that. They usually have a pretty good program on the third Friday of every month. And that's it for this week.
Eldon, thank you very, very much. All right, here. If you know somebody who just got laid off, if you know somebody who's unemployed, please let them know about CareerDFW and CareerUSA.org, 2 free websites that are there to help anybody who's out looking for a job. All right, time to hear from the practice interview team. Good morning, Mark.
Hey, good morning, Jeff. And here's the weather report. It's raining in Frisco and the temperature is 33 degrees. So I think it gets worse from here. Third freeze this year. Wow. That's all I got to say is wow. I'm going to have to move south. I didn't sign up for this. All right. Well, so I'm very glad to hear about Jay's new presentation. I'm going to sit in on it if at all possible. You know, the pit crew is a good mix of actually doing and learn and knowing and learning, right? So adults, I interviewed practiced interviewed this week an adult education specialist, and she confirmed what I already know is that adults learn best by actually doing whatever it is you're trying to teach them. If you can get them physically engaged with it, then it'll stick a lot better. Maybe that applies to children as well, but certainly for adults. And so the pit crew gives you an opportunity to do a practice interview so you can find out if you've mastered what you learned. So the way this works is that you send in a job description and a resume. The pit crew gives you a very personalized and customized interview experience. And the interviewers have all been hiring managers and also all been through job transition. As a matter of fact, most of them, 90% of them or so, are currently in job transition. And so they volunteer their time and their expertise in selecting people to come to work for them to give you feedback. So after the interview is over, which takes about 40 to 45 minutes, you'll get immediate feedback based on that job description and your background and how you answered the questions, and we'll discuss. And usually that's 20 or 25 minutes worth of discussion. So there's a pretty, significant amount of time after the interview to discuss how it went. You'll pick up a lot of tips and learn a lot of things, including things that you did well. Yesterday I had a candidate who has mastered brevity. That's one of the toughest things to do. I don't think any of his answer, well, his introduction was a little long, and so we talked to him about that. But after that, it was 30 seconds, 40 seconds. The longest was maybe a minute 20. The longest response to a question. So he was, and interestingly enough, he was a salesperson who tend to be loquacious. So we gave him a lot of positive kudos about that, because that's a very effective way to interview. It's just to cut right to the chase. So, but anyway, you'll get a lot of good feedback after your practice interview is over, and you can practice interview as many times as you like. The record is 9. I think the recommendation is it'll take about 5 practice interviews for you to master all aspects of the interview, the open, the close, questions that come in the middle, building rapport, showing enthusiasm, all those kinds of things. So when you're ready to practice, send in your information to dallaspitcrew@gmail.com. And it takes, we have some standardized times. So on Tuesday evening and Wednesday afternoon and Thursday afternoon are the set times and dates for practice interviews, but we still need a couple of days to prepare in advance, because we do put a lot of effort into studying up on your job description and your resume. So for example, when I do these, I'll sit down and go through the resume and I'll list usually 5 or 6 questions that I want to ask off the resume. And then I'll look at the job description, and depending on how long it is, there'll be another, 10 to 15 questions that I'll ask that I would ask off of the resume. So I'm sorry, off the job description. So that's kind of the prep work that goes into advance of your job interview. Practice interview. I'm having trouble talking now, and better slow down. And so that's why we need a couple of days in advance to get prepared. So I think it says there on the card, and I mentioned that it's volunteers that do this work. So that means it's absolutely free. There's no charge. You don't have to worry about that. The pit crew is absolutely free. All right. First, we have a one-way pit crew offering as well. One-way tools, if you've encountered these, sometimes you know the question, sometimes you don't, but you have to talk to yourself, basically, answering these questions. The pit crew offering is just 4 questions, and I give them to you in advance. So I really want to give you a chance to practice engaging the tool, because I got to say it's kind of awkward. It's very awkward. So you'll know what the questions are. There's only 4 of them, and when your time now to make this a little more realistic, when you go through the tool in the pit crew offering, you don't get redos. Okay, so I'll give you the questions in advance, but it's one and done with the pit crew interview, which some put one-way interviews are like that. Some will let you redo it, review it, and redo it, but the pit crew is one and done. And of course, you can do it multiple times if you're not real happy with how it turned out. So that's a one-way offering from the pit crew. There's my LinkedIn profile. I'm going to put my contact information in the chat window. As a matter of fact, I'll do it right now. There it is. So there's my LinkedIn profile, the pit crew address, the pit crew phone number, and also a web page where you can go and get more information about the dates and times and how the pit crew works. So what else do I have? I'm always looking for new volunteers because they land as well. And so if you have been a hiring manager, you have all the prerequisites necessary to volunteer with the pit crew and give back to others during your time in transition. So reach out to me at dallaspitcrew@gmail.com or give me a call if that's something you'd like to do, and I'll tell you more about it. You'll get more out of it than you give. That's kind of a universal thing that new panelists will tell me. I'm learning so much. And that's absolutely true. So think about that. If you're interested, give me a call. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Mark. All right, Walt is not with us today. He's decided that he wants to go donate his money to one of the casinos up in Oklahoma this weekend. So I just want to mention quickly that Walt offers a workshop on Tuesdays. You're welcome to sign up for that. It's a very process oriented. He only takes 2 people, and it's very slow and deliberate, and he will help you step by step with an interview. It's not like a real interview like the practice interview team does. It is much more casual. If you have a stumble, he'll stop. We'll talk about how to answer that particular question. So if you're interested, you can reach out to Walt on his LinkedIn page, has more information in the About section. And if you want to sign up, walt_glass@yahoo.com if you're interested. So we have no poem today because I didn't come up with one. So we weren't gonna, no poetry today.
Me
So
neither.
we're going to move on to the career tip of the week. Good morning, Liz. I hear you're a little bit under the weather.
Well, I am, but I'm hanging in there. I'm convalescing. Thank you, Jeff. Thank you, Jeff. And good morning, everyone. The current tip of the week is building your personal board of directors. Create the team that helps you grow and holds you accountable by Kate Healy. What is a personal board of directors? This isn't the first time you've heard it, and I know I've said it quite a few times. Your career is, well, yours, and you have the responsibility to see how it grows and where it takes you. You could say that you are the chief executive officer of You Incorporated. Being a CEO offers advantages. You shape the strategic direction of You Incorporated. You look at the big picture and focus on why, and also a reoccurring thing. And one big advantage of being CEO is that you work with a board of directors. So it makes sense that You Incorporated has a personal board of directors, or a PBOD, to guide you in making decisions, give you advice, introduce you to people who can help, and occasionally give you a slight kick to make sure you are focused and heading in the right direction. So who should be on my personal board of directors? It can be overwhelming to decide who you need to be on your personal board of directors. Visualize your board table and decide what chairs you need to fill at this stage in your career. Narrow it down by thinking about what strengths are not part of your current arsenal. Are you getting ready to relocate and feel uncomfortable cold calling to establish relationships in your new city? There's always that person that knows a gal, so you may want to think about adding a connector. Do you need someone to help you envision where your industry is heading so that you can ensure you are preparing yourself for where the business is going? Look to your futuristic connections for guidance to ensure your skill set is ready. Focus on the 4 to 6 people that can provide strengths to guide you for this time in your career. These should be people you trust and you want to make a commitment to being your best self with. Most importantly, your personal board of directors needs to include diverse points of view. This isn't the time for all your besties to sit around and tell you how great you are or your idea is. You want people who are going to poke holes in your plans. Think of them as your personal lane change warning system. They save you from your own blind spots. Some examples of the characteristics of those who want on your personal board is a connector or a networker. They can introduce you to people who can introduce you to people who can introduce you to people who, well, you get the idea. Accountability, make sure, excuse me. Accountability partner, make sure you do what you said you were going to do. Excuse me. And then there's the futurist, the people who are always thinking about what could be. The realist, and they want to see your business plan. And the confidant, like a BFF, you can hash out your ideas knowing they won't spill your secrets. Your future self, someone in a role or circumstances you aspire to. An innovator who brings change and innovative ideas. Excuse me. And the rising star, someone who sees with fresh eyes as they make their way up the ladder. What is different about this board is that you will reach out to them individually when you need guidance. How to support your board and pay it forward. Like everyone else in life, your personal board director will need care and feeding. And once you have asked people to be on your board, make sure you are reaching out to them at regular intervals to share goals, get feedback, and provide updates on how things are going, especially where they have helped you. Relationships like are two-way streets, so make sure to explore where your personal strengths can help your directors. Your personal board of directors is a dynamic entity, and as your
I'll tell you what, Liz, I'll finish it up for you. You've only got a couple more paragraphs. Save your voice. I can tell we've worn you out this morning. So I'll finish up the last few lines, Liz. Thank you for being with us today.
Okay.
The personal board of directors is a dynamic entity, and as your career develops, you need change. You may add new directors to your board. Let them know what strengths you expect them to bring to the table. This also means that you may no longer need some of your directors. Be transparent about what the needs have shifted and how to share the successes and how they have helped you achieve. A nice gift wouldn't hurt either. And now my favorite part. Once you have assembled your board, share your thoughts on why you do this and what you get from them. People change jobs often, and mentors can be hard to find. Raising awareness on this strategy can help others. And who knows, perhaps someone will ask you to be on their personal board of directors. So, this is a great, if you don't have an accountability group, have a personal board of directors, have people that'll be out there to help you in your job search, because you incorporate it, you're the company, you're a company, an object is for you to land a job and to be able to do something. So Liz, thank you very much. Sorry, hopefully feel better. Go have a hot chocolate or a hot cup of tea. And if you'd like to see the career DFW, if you'd like to see that, you're welcome to reach out to the website to do that.
Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you. All right. Well, last week I happened to show everybody this picture. A couple of us went to Country Burger for lunch, and the question was, how much would this cost at Country Burger? So I took a picture of this, and what I'd like everybody to do is in the chat window, put down how much you think this cost. Okay, so we'll give everybody a few seconds to decide how much you think 5 burger patties, a chicken patty, 2 slices of ham, some bacon, and it's several slices of bacon, onion strings, eight slices of cheese, lettuce, tomato, pickle, so jalapenos. So good prices in there. We got a 50, a 25, a 9.50. Boy, I wish you could get it for 9.50. 35 bucks, 29, $12 special. No, more than 12. 19.95, 39.95, 64.95. Boy. 35, 55, 42, 17.99, 25. Anybody else want to take a guess? All right.
Jeff,
Well, according to Country
Jeff,
Burger, and I had the guy who's in charge of the place there look at it, and whoops. So he has said, let me get here to the right page here. The cost is $30.85 plus ham. They don't have ham at Country Burger, so you'd have to provide your own ham. So $30.85 is the cost for this burger. So they thought it was sort of fun to price out themselves. I saw them sitting there calculating it and writing things down. So if you're interested in this lunch, $30.85, bring your own ham. All right, coming up in just a few moments, we'll hear from Debbie Sholk, who's going to talk about why your emotional intelligence matters in today's new world. Upcoming sessions next week, Crystal Yates will be with us to talk about negotiations. And then on the 25th, Jay Fucero will be back. We're going to get to hear Jay twice in 1 month. He's going to do his presentation on effective networking. There isn't one thing. Jay's got a book out he wrote several years ago, and there's not one thing in his book that I disagree with. So you can hear him next Wednesday talk about interviewing, and then in 2 weeks, talking about effective networking. If you would, we'd love to be able to see your smiling faces. Turn on your camera, let us see what you look like, because I know the speaker, and I know when I give talks, it's always nice to be able to get some feedback and see people as they're talking and stuff. So if you don't mind, turn on your camera, let us see what you look like today. So it's time to hear from our speaker. Debbie is an executive coach. She's a training facilitator, and she's going to talk about why your emotional intelligence matters in today's new world. So Debbie, thank you for being with us, and I will let you tell people more about who you are.
Well, good morning, and thank you very much for having me. This is really delightful. I think you and I had a few minutes to speak before agreeing to do this presentation this morning. And one of the things I realized is that I think we've met, and I have been a customer, a client of some of the career sessions that take place here in the DFW area. So I'm delighted to be able to kind of pay it back and be a little bit more involved and talk about emotional intelligence and why it would be so important to you during your career transition. So I'm going to kind of jump right in. I know we've got a full morning, most of us do. And I know many of us have heard the term emotional intelligence, and we may or may not be sure what it means. And it kind of juxtaposes with what we know as IQ. So we've learned about intelligence and how that's measured in terms of someone's IQ, their academic or their cognitive intelligence quotient. We hear about that all the time. Usually we hear about that in terms of average being, for example, a score of 100, and a little bit more, a little bit less is kind of the range that we see in the workplace. Yes.
Do you have slides that you want to show? Because we're not showing those.
I am showing. I'm sorry. Hold on.
You need to hit share screen at the bottom and then.
Got it. Got it. Got it. Okay. Here we go. Thank you.
Now we got them. All right. There you go.
Got them. Okay. So talking a little bit more about emotional intelligence and what that means to us. There are a couple of people who've done quite a bit of research in the area. You know, I talked about how we know what intelligence is in terms of cognitive intelligence because we hear about it all the time. It's what drives our education system. But then somewhere in the mid-1990s, a couple of psychologists named Peter Salovey and John Mayer started to talk about, well, what is it besides cognitive intelligence that makes people successful? And they sort of developed this theory that there's something called emotional intelligence. Sometimes people refer to it as social intelligence because it has to do with how you apply your intelligence and your other skills, your personal interaction skills with other people that bolster or support or boost or, for lack of a better phrase, put on steroids your cognitive intelligence. They really kind of give it a jolt of juice that makes you successful. And one of the people who has done quite a bit of studying in this area based on the initial research is a fellow named Daniel Goldman, who teaches out of Rutgers University in New Jersey. And he is considered today one of the leading experts in emotional intelligence. So I'll refer to him quite a bit. He has been particularly interested in the correlation between higher emotional intelligence and success. So emotional intelligence is sometimes described as the ability to identify and manage one's own emotions as well as the emotions of others. Generally, emotional intelligence includes a few skills. So those skills would be being able to identify and name your own emotions. That's called emotional awareness. The ability to harness those emotions that you have and apply them to tasks like thinking and problem solving. And the ability to somewhat regulate your own emotions when necessary and help other people to do the same. I've heard people use the expression, when everybody else's hair is on fire, you don't need to light a match to yours too. You need to calm everybody down and help people get their arms around the situation that's going on that's causing them emotional distress. So the idea of emotional intelligence has really gained acceptance. Some people are what we might call the traditionalists who may argue that, well, we can't really measure emotional quotient. We can't give you a score of 100 or 110 or 120 for emotional intelligence, so it doesn't exist. We can't measure it, so it doesn't happen. I would argue that our own experiences and the kinds of things that we observe in the workforce or in our work days really would belie that, would make it seem that that's not necessarily true. Do you ever know somebody who made you scratch your head and think, how can somebody so smart act so dumb? People can be really cognitively intelligent. Sometimes we tease and refer to those people as the absent-minded professors among us. And yet they show so little emotional intelligence that they don't seem to be smart at all. Likewise, we've all known people that we wouldn't describe as geniuses, but they seem to perform exceptionally well in their lives. They're charismatic, they're friendly, people like them, they figure things out, they're very practical. The early students of emotional intelligence, John Mayer, Peter Salovey, and later Daniel Goldman, proposed that truly successful people have both cognitive and emotional intelligence. Smart decision-making requires more than one's intellect as measured by traditional IQ, they say. It needs EQ. And that's one of the things that they've kind of based their research and their studies on. And I think we would agree, particularly in career transition, we can be smart as a whip, but if people don't connect with us, click with us, if we don't click with them, they're not as likely to interview with us or hire us or bring us on to be a part of their team. So we really need to keep in mind, okay, I may be smart as a whip, but am I emotionally intelligent and what can I do about that? So the image that we frequently use to talk about emotional intelligence has to do with our understanding, knowledge, recognition, and regulation of who we are and how we feel and what our emotions are, and then how we apply that in social settings. So the core of emotional intelligence is self-awareness, which comes with 3 what we call competencies. Emotional self-awareness, you can read and understand your own emotions and recognize how they make other people feel or how they affect your relationships and work performance. The next one is self-assessment, accurate self-assessment. You can give a realistic evaluation of your own strengths and limitations. I might want to be a rocket scientist, and I might really, really want that, but it's probably not going to happen. So if I tell people I'm a budding rocket scientist, that's not an accurate self-assessment. The other piece is self-confidence. When you have a positive and a strong sense of your self-worth, you are much more self-aware, and you are much more capable of applying the skills that you have towards the things that you need to do in your job. So the starting point and key in these areas is the ability to be critically self-reflective. Can I look at myself and say, these are the things that I do particularly well. These are the things that, hey, I could use a little polish here. The next piece of it is self-management. So that's got 5 competencies under it. Whoops, sorry, accidentally hit my mouse. The next piece has 5 competencies under it. Self-control, which is your ability to keep your impulses under control. I might want to say that thing that's popping into the back of my head right this minute, but it's probably not a good plan if I want to be well-liked or be well-considered in a professional setting. Transparency, being able to maintain my own standards of honesty and integrity and manage myself and my responsibilities. Then adaptability, the ability to be flexible in adapting to changing situations and overcoming obstacles. Each job, each situation, every day for that matter, brings slightly new challenges, and the ability to adapt yourself to meet those is really key in emotional intelligence. And then our achievement orientation, the drive we have to meet our own internal standard of excellence is a piece of that, and initiative, the readiness to seize opportunities and act on them. Those are key parts of managing ourselves. Social awareness is a piece that other people see. So that might be our empathy, our ability to understand other people and take an active interest in their concerns. Our awareness of the organization around us. Can we read the currents of organizational life? Can we build our own decision networks? Earlier we were talking about having our own board of directors. That's a form of a decision network. The people around you with whom you converse or consult to get input on what you're doing. Our service orientation, the ability to recognize and meet people's needs around us. That's a big piece of social and emotional intelligence. And then there's relationship management, which has the greatest number of competencies. Visionary leadership, the ability to inspire and guide groups and people. The ability to develop other people, the propensity to strengthen and support other people's abilities with your guidance and feedback. And then the ability to influence by exercising a range of persuasive strategies with integrity, not manipulating people, but helping them to see things in a way that maybe they hadn't initially seen, including listening and sending clear, convincing, well-tuned messages. Being a change catalyst. These folks are, and when we are doing this, we are proficient in initiating new ideas and leading people in a new direction. And then conflict management. We all know that there's going to be conflict with ourselves, within other people in our work group. And our ability to resolve those disagreements and collaboratively develop resolutions is really helpful and very important in relationship management. We also build bonds with people, building and maintaining relationships with others, teamwork and collaboration, promoting cooperation and building teams. So all of these together, if you had to really identify the components of emotional intelligence, this is what we would use as kind of our framework for identifying emotional intelligence. The core of it, as we talked about, is self-awareness. You can be the smartest person in the room on any given day, but if you're not aware of yourself and the way that you come across to other people and the impact that you have on your words, with your words and your actions, it's not really going to help you very much. So the starting point and the key in all of the competencies is the ability to be critically self-reflective. That's where your board of directors group comes in, because they can help you be self-critical and point out the things that you could be doing differently. These are the 5 competencies of self-management that we talked about. Managing your own emotions, being transparent, being able to adapt, having an orientation towards achievement, and the readiness to seize opportunities and act on them. And then social awareness. We talked about empathy, organizational awareness, paying attention to what's going on around us, reading the currents, building our decision networks, and navigating the politics of everyday life on the job. And service orientation, meeting other people's needs. I'm not going to read through all of these 7 competencies. We just talked about them, but this is our most jam-packed area of emotional intelligence. And that's the ability to work with, get along with, and develop relationships with other people, which is made up of these 7 competencies as they've been identified. Remember the movie, The Devil Wears Prada? That silly movie where there was a young woman, Andrea, who was the junior assistant, who takes a job working for Miranda, who's played by Meryl Streep, because she really wants to be a New York Times journalist. And she's heard that the best way to be seen and have her skills noticed is to take a job as difficult as this one, working for what we later find out in the movie is the devil, Meryl Streep. And once she does that for a year, she's heard she can do any job, anyone will hire her. So she quickly learns in working in this opportunity that the job and her boss are going to absorb all of her energy, basically suck the life out of her if she continues to stay there. So she has to quickly develop an understanding of her abilities and limitations. She has to be confident, and then she tries to make sense of her demanding and often demeaning boss as a means to her end goal of becoming a journalist. So that's kind of the application of self-awareness. And then there's self-management. You know, being able to keep your self-control is being able to keep your disruptive emotions and impulses under control. As opposed to my friend on the right, who looks like he just likes to have a good time and doesn't necessarily exercise a whole lot of self-control. There's social awareness. The fellow on the left-hand side, if he showed up for his first day on the job in most offices, that would probably not be the most appropriate attire. And that, if he did, it would also signal to most people around him that he's not terribly self-aware. Another clue to our social awareness is people's body language. So the woman in the center might be confused, or she might be throwing up her hands in exasperation. Situational cues can help us decode body language too. The point is to be aware of how people see us as we present ourselves in the workplace, particularly in a transition time. because we know that that's a time when our own emotions are going to be running high, and we need to sort of take a step back and get a grip on, for lack of a better word, the way that we're feeling emotionally, so that we can apply those emotions in a way that works for us, that helps us, that is beneficial. And then relationship management, which we talked about before. There's really no end to the number of relationships we will see in our lives, in our work worlds. And so being able to understand what other people need from our relationship and provide that to them is really the key to making ourselves successful in the job. Your emotional intelligence matters. It matters on the job, it matters at home. Your ability to show empathy, connect with other people, align your efforts with the team and the organization are all major components of your emotional intelligence. We know that, for example, our verbal communication, when we're talking to people, accounts for a mere 20 to 40% of our communication. Most of the rest of what we are communicating to other people, they get from us non-verbally. That might be the way we sit, the way we stand, our posture, our facial expressions, the amount of fidgeting we're doing, whether or not we're checking our watch or our phones. Those kinds of things send a very loud and powerful message to the people around us, and are important to keep in mind when we're working with people on whom we're trying to have a good impression. So nonverbal communication, it's generally agreed, accounts for 60 to 80% of what we communicate to others. So if you had your druthers and you were planning to meet with people for a new job, the recommendation is generally, while you're going to practice as you do in the pit crew, the answers to your questions, you're also going to need to really focus on, how am I sitting? Am I making eye contact? Am I fidgeting around? Am I looking at the person? Do I appear to be listening to them? That's the important stuff that the person sees and notices and takes note of, even more than what you're saying. It matters at work. A greater awareness, as we mentioned, of self and others at work creates the optimal environment for communication and collaboration. Or conversely, low awareness of self and others can set the stage for miscommunication. You might develop misunderstandings and missed opportunities. So one of the things we hear a lot is that our attitude is contagious. We've heard it before, we've all experienced it. When we're around a person who has nothing positive to say, the whole mood of the group goes down. People start to think about, well, I really didn't like this, and that didn't go very well, and I don't like so-and-so's tie. Those are the kinds of things that really just kind of cloud over what could otherwise be a pretty nice experience. But how does that help with career transition? It helps us keep going. When we manage our emotions to focus on more positive things, we keep going even when we're discouraged. We signal to our peers and our potential employers that we can self-manage our emotions, which is an important part of EQ. Even if the person that we're working with, or a potential manager, or a team that's interviewing you, doesn't necessarily know a lot about emotional intelligence, they do subconsciously. So the positive attitude, words, ideas, thoughts, even just a smile that you have when you're working with those people signals, because that's what 60 to 80% of your message, signals to them that, hey, this is a good person to have around. They look on the bright side, they find a positive in most situations, and they help us to get out of our difficulties as quickly as possible. Emotionally intelligent people are highly conscious of their own emotional states, even the negative ones, from frustration or sadness to more subtle emotions. They're able to identify and understand what they're feeling, and they're able to name their emotion. The ability to name their emotions helps them manage it. So if I'm feeling kind of blah one morning and I'm trying to ignore that emotion may color my interactions with people for the rest of the day. But if I stop for a minute and say, I'm feeling really kind of yuck. I wonder if I just didn't get enough sleep, or maybe I need another cup of coffee, but I need to shake out of it because this isn't going to help me today. That makes a difference. And that's part of the self-confidence that we have and the ability to be realistic about ourselves, to say, okay, today's not one of my better days, but I'm going to get around it. Can we strengthen emotional intelligence? Absolutely. Our IQ is, for the most part, and there are some recent studies that indicate that there may be ways to boost intelligence quotient. But for the most part, IQ is fairly stable. What you get is what you get. And in our professions, in our technical fields, the typical entry-level threshold IQ is between 110 to 120. So if 100 is average, you get a few points above average, or possibly a little bit lower than 100, but generally everybody's in the same range. So that's not going to change. That's largely genetic, and it doesn't change from your childhood. So what we're saying is that since everyone in a professional setting is in the top 10% or so of intelligence, IQ itself is really little competitive advantage. You need something else to be more competitive than the next person. Whoops, sorry. Growing your competency in emotional intelligence isn't simple. It isn't quick. It takes perseverance in the process of critical self-evaluation and commitment to improvement, and of course, behavioral practice. Practice makes perfect is never truer than with emotional intelligence. Competence in emotional intelligence doesn't necessarily increase with age, as you might expect. Some people might learn from life experiences, but some people just don't learn. They continue to do the same things over and over and over again without looking within, without looking at themselves, without identifying what it is they're contributing to the picture. So how do we strengthen emotional intelligence? What does that mean? What are some tips and tricks? One of the practices that Goldman and the other psychologists who study emotional intelligence have talked about is daily mindfulness. Taking 10 minutes, they specifically prescribe practically 10 minutes a couple of times a day, particularly in the morning. So the way this works is that the amygdala, the part of the brain that responds to stress and fear and anger and other emotions, engages pretty quickly. It's supposed to. That's part of our evolutionary process, and that's helped us survive. But acting on those emotions without having an opportunity to think about them, examine them, consider how they're going to impact you, is not a particularly useful trait in our current lives. We're not running away from dinosaurs or wild animals anymore. We don't need our fight or flight response quite that much. We don't need it to kick in quite so quickly in the modern world. What we know today, and it's backed up by the research, is that people who are able to help themselves or cause themselves to relax and identify their feelings, and those who consciously practice positive thoughts by considering the things that they're grateful for, the good in their lives, those people make more productive decisions. They're better leaders, and they report feeling more confident and happy. There are a number of books, YouTube videos, TED Talks, etc., that Dr. Daniel Goldman recommends, in which he recommends taking 10 minutes of your time each day to practice this behavior. So what he says is, before you do anything in the morning, except maybe brush your teeth or wash your face or get your first cup of coffee, find a quiet place. Outside is better. There are all kinds of research that supports that nature is a calming influence. Or a quiet place inside, and spend some time alone, thinking about the positive things in your life. Some people call that being grateful, or setting your intentions. In other words, setting yourself up to feel good about or have a positive attitude about the day. Some people do this through meditation. Some people do this through prayer. It really doesn't matter what your preference is. What matters is that you take that 10 minutes to center yourself and then go about your day-to-day life. So that's a huge factor. People who do this find themselves being more in touch with and being able to exercise greater amounts of emotional intelligence than the folks who just hit the ground running, don't think about it, and allow their emotions to rule their lives. And then pick a time once a week. Friday afternoon is usually a good time. The week is winding down, things are getting a little bit quieter. Block time on your calendar, hold yourself accountable for it, and focus on what did not go well and what could I do differently to make it go better the next time. So you really want to look at, in addition to what went well and what specifically did I do that made it go well, then you want to look at what didn't go well and what specifically did I do that caused it to not go well and what could I do differently. And then you kind of hit the restart button and tell yourself, okay, that was this week. The new week is coming up. I'm going to let go. I'm not going to beat myself up. I'm not going to keep dwelling on what didn't go well and what I did wrong. I'm going to focus on what can I do differently in the future next week? And how will I handle similar situations as I'm moving forward? Improving your emotional intelligence takes a lot of practice. It's not something you can do immediately. I don't know if any of you have practiced meditation or tried any of the meditation apps that are out there. There are a lot of really very helpful ones, and they're quite good if you use them, but you have to use them and you have to use them regularly to allow yourself to get in touch with, well, what am I feeling? And how am I feeling that and why? And that allows you to not necessarily react immediately or answer to everything immediately. A good practice is to stop. Somebody tells you something, stop a minute. You don't have to answer immediately. Counting to 10 in your head seems like an eternity, but it's really not. Take a deep breath, think, and then speak. That gives you the time to identify how you're feeling and collect your thoughts so that you don't use your fight or flight response to just blurt out what pops into your head first. That's not emotional intelligence. Another piece of emotional intelligence and strengthening it is learning to listen actively without any disruptions or distractions. Don't interrupt the person who's speaking. Ask questions when they're finished that help you gather more information rather than immediately feeling the need to respond to them. You can always gather more information, but once you've declared something, you can't take it back. You've already said it, it's out there. You've put a semicolon in the conversation, as it were, and stopped things for the moment. Practice, practice, practice. Make sure the person who's speaking has the opportunity to communicate. Really listen to them. Listen to yourself. Are you interrupting? Are you making assumptions? Are you finishing their sentences for them? I do that sometimes. People like many of us who are busy and type A personalities and want to get things done, have a tendency to assume that they know how this conversation is going to end. And so let's just cut to the chase, hurry up, let me finish your sentence for you. That's not being a good listener. That's not good emotional intelligence. Also, being observant, not only of other people, but of yourself. Are we, not only do we want to look at what they're doing, but I want to think about, am I, sitting in front of somebody with my arms crossed? Am I not looking at them? Am I fidgeting? How many times have I looked at my phone or my watch? Am I sending the message that what they're saying is important? Another piece, and this is an oldie but goodie, is the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People from Stephen Covey. So he talks about practical behaviors that can be learned and mastered to help you strengthen your emotional quotient, your EQ. And they are making sure you first understand and then see about making yourself understood, making sure you align yourself to your audience by synergizing with them, thinking about how you want things to end so that you guide your behaviors appropriately, thinking about how everyone can win, not just you, reflecting on and repairing your deficiencies. In other words, being critically self-reflective, sharpen your saw, think about what your part in situations at work or at home or in your relationships were impacted by what you did and what could you do differently. Be deliberate, take action, be proactive. Set your priorities, let go of the little things and put the important things first. All of that together kind of pulls us through, and there are 5 personality profiles that we sometimes talk about and what they mean with emotional intelligence. We talk about people being extroverted or introverted. That's your preferred source of motivation. Do I like to go into a crowded room with lots of people and lots of activity and things happening and everything's going on? Or am I energized by quiet time, my 10 minutes of meditation in the morning? Determining how you like to obtain information, whether you want to have specific facts and data or right now, or whether you want to kind of let your gut guide you a little bit. You want to think about the thinking versus feeling, the way in which you prefer to make decisions. Do I make decisions with my head or my heart or some combination? What we've talked about with emotional intelligence is that being able to use a combination of your head and your heart, or your sensing and your intuition, is what makes you more emotionally intelligent. Judging versus perceiving is your preferred approach to life. Am I organized and do I plan everything out, or am I okay with open-endedness and being spontaneous? I would say that it's similar to a pendulum in that you can't be all of one or all of the other. But each of us has a preferred comfort zone where we either like to know how things are going to go, or we're okay with flying by the seat of our pants. And then, am I assertive? Do I like to be able to make abilities and make my decisions based on my abilities and how I respond to them? Or do I allow the things around me to influence what's happening? Again, it's not an either or, it's a pendulum. And then we put all of this together with our commitment, with our discipline, with our focus, with applying our practices and repeating them over and over and over until they're comfortable for us, until they're habit, until that's the way we interact with people. That's how we practice and strengthen our emotional intelligence, which has a huge impact on our career transition and our success in the workplace. Questions?
Well, I have a question. So, you talk about EQ is 20 to 40%. Well, I mean, it's 60 to 80% is body language and stuff. So that 20 to 40%, is there I mean, some of us like to take tests, like strength finders and other discs and other things. Is there something out there that we could take to sort of see where we fall on that scale?
Yes, there are. There are plenty of those, and I do some of those. So if anybody is interested, I'd be happy to talk to them about it. But the 20 to 40% versus the 60 to 80% has to do with your oral communications or your verbal communications versus your body language. That's where that comes in. And so some of that you can manage a little bit, but the way people perceive us falls into those parameters in terms of, when I see you as I'm talking, nodding your head. That's why we like to have people's pictures on Zoom. We like to see them nodding their heads and smiling and looking at the screen when we're talking. It encourages us and tells us that the person hears us.
Lily says, would you go back to the last slide and explain the assertive and question mark?
Okay, hold on. Let me go back to where I was.
I think slide 26 maybe.
Yep. Okay, hold on. Assertive versus turbulent.
Yes.
So the assertive person, the person whose comfort zone is in the assertive area. And I think everybody has a little of both. But the person who is assertive is the person who prefers to know my I's are dotted, my T's are crossed, I know what's going on. Whereas the turbulent person, there's a little more flexibility. Does that make sense?
Lily, does that answer your question? You're welcome to unmute your mic.
Yes,
Maybe-
yes, yes, sorry, I had to unmute. Yes, thank you very much. Yes.
Okay.
Great. Anybody else, if you have a question, please unmute your mic and ask away.
I am also available if people would like to talk to me later or reach out to me.
Debbie, I have a question. This
Sure.
is Meredith. When you talk about body language, I've been in meetings and, the majority of the time is spent just chitter chatting and, not going about the business. And I'm a type of person that I'm there for the business and I want to go ahead and get the issues off the table. So I get frustrated when there's someone just sitting and they're just talking and, I'm one of those people also that everything's spinning in my mind. All I have to do, all the tasks I have to do. So I'm sitting there like, okay, you all are wasting my time. I really need to get to my business. And it's just frustrating. So can you kind of tell me how to deal with that?
Well, first of all, I like your emotional intelligence in being able to identify how you feel about that. Because that's your first step in figuring out how you're going to manage that. And I think a lot of it depends on your awareness of the situation. Meredith, right? Is that your first name, Meredith?
Yes.
Okay. Yes. If it's not your meeting and you're a participant and not the leader, you have different options than if you're the leader. But it's certainly not, out of the question to be able to kind of gently steer the conversation back to the tasks at hand, maybe by asking a more pertinent question, or acknowledge that the person said something that's meaningful to them, even though you're not interested. And say, well, that's very interesting, or thank you very much, or yes, we've all had those kinds of days. And we were talking about this before. Can we revisit that and kind of gently bring them back?
Okay, thank you.
Uh-huh.
Anybody else have any questions?
Not so much a question, but just a comment. The last 4 or 5 years I was with my last employer, we focused in a lot on this because, if someone came into my office, running, I had 11 direct reports. It was very hard to control myself from listening to what they're saying and then being on my computer at the same time instead of making eye contact. And that it was called out to me. And then we put everybody through this training. And it does make a big difference, giving someone your undivided attention, even though you got a million other things going on.
One of the things I've found is that if I can, I don't want to use the word force myself, but encourage myself to let go of what I feel is most important at the time and let the other person say what they're going to say, it's often much more time efficient to just let them say what they're going to say and then go back than to keep having them interrupt you to make their point. So yeah, I hear what you're saying. It's really hard to do when you're busy and you've got things going on and people are running in and saying, could I ask you about this and what about that? Yeah.
Very good. Anybody else? Any other comments or questions?
This is Rich. I just wanted to say just a comment that in your section on daily mindfulness,
Yes.
is that I've found it to be very powerful to get up in the morning, whether I'm looking for work or I was at work, to take a walk. And yeah, you might have that phone with you, but you're not going to pay any attention to it, or you have it off, or you don't have it.
Yeah.
And it's just amazing what a 5 or 10 minute walk does to kind of set the stage for the day.
It's a gift to yourself. It really is.
I agree, because it really separates you from other things and might put you in a position with God if you have people on the phone here that are religious and kind of well, and you get exercise, you get fresh air. There are so many benefits to just taking a short walk, and even if you don't feel like you have that time for that in the morning, just maybe a tip for other people is park as far away from the building as you can, and take that longer walk into work.
That does help. Thank you, Richard.
You're welcome. Thanks for bringing it up.
Okay.
Anyone else? Going once, going twice? All right. Well, Debbie, thank you very much for your time. Thanks. I know this was a last minute fill in for Jane. I really appreciate the fact, stepping up and offering to come talk with us today. Really, really appreciate it. There's some really great information in there.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you having me.
Very good. All right. Just share a couple last slides and we will get out of here today. All right. So next Friday, our speaker is going to talk about negotiations with Crystal Yates. So please join us next Friday if you'd like to. We hope that you will join us for that presentation. If you have not put your 30-second introductions into the Zoom chat window, please do so we know that you're here, that I can get you on the roster, we get you counted, and maybe somebody who's here today can help you land your next job because they have a contact at one of the companies you're looking for. So if you haven't done so yet, please go through and do that. It'd be greatly appreciated. Career DFW and Career USA, we're putting on training 4 days a week. Hopefully you'll join us next Tuesday. Every Tuesday we do a LinkedIn presentation. Next Tuesday is Terry Sullivan, how to create a LinkedIn brand that tells your key contacts who you are, what you do, and how you can help. This event will not be recorded, so if you want to watch Terry, you do need to watch him live next Tuesday, 1 o'clock Central Time. Next Wednesday, if you're interviewing Wednesdays, we have a special guest speaker. Jay Fucero will be with us to talk about the 6 keys to a successful interview. And then next Wednesday, being the 3rd Thursday of the month, Susan Gray will be with us to talk about effective resumes and how your resume makes a difference. Just remember, a resume and a LinkedIn profile do not get you a job. They only get you a phone call. It's your interviewing skills that get you a job. So just remember those things. This session has been recorded. It will be on the Career DFW Facebook page and the Career USA YouTube channel. If you follow us on Facebook, every time we go live, your phone will go a little buzz and you'll know that we're currently live. If you if you subscribe to our Career USA YouTube channel, every time I post a new video, you'll get an alert letting you know that we've put a new video out there. On the Career USA YouTube channel, it looks something like this. Click on playlist, otherwise you get a jumbled mess of all the different videos. Click on playlist, because every video that I upload, I do put into a different playlist. And then pick whichever topic you want, resumes, interviewing, LinkedIn, networking. And then instead of clicking on the video, click down below where it says view full playlist. And when you do that, up will come a list in chronological order of all the dates, times, or dates and topics that we've talked about. You can scroll down and pick whichever topic it is you'd like to go back and watch. The newest ones should usually be on top and not click the little sort button to get the newest topic to the very top. So thank you very much for joining us today, everybody. Stay warm, have a great weekend. And Debbie, once again, thank you very much. And we'll see you all next week.